Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We do appreciate your time and hope you find some value in today's session. My name is Tim Kelly and I'm a Senior Manager with BDO. Just a bit of an overview of today's session is we're going to walk you through Knowledge Centred Services, or you might hear us refer to as KCS, as it's a bit of a mouthful. So what we hope to do in today's session is to give you an understanding about what KCS is and what it is not. I suppose in working closely with Aprill, I've got to understand that it's not a product, it's not software, it's not a thing. It's a set of behaviours and a methodology in a lot of ways. We want to show you how KCS can add value to your business, and then what that value really looks like. And we're going to show you some real life examples of what that's looked like and how that's driven business into a range of different organisations. Okay, thanks, Aprill.
Oh, yeah, see that. Yeah, carry on.
Just a quick overview on BDO. So BDO is a global organisation. We specialise in audit, tax and advisory. We're in 167 different countries around the world. We're in all the states of Australia. We've got about 1,800 people that work for us here in Australia. I'm located in Adelaide and I'm part of our technical advisory team. And what we do is we help customers organise, establish and implement IT strategies. So we sort of specialise in the areas of business intelligence, data analytics, technology risk, cybersecurity, digital transformation, project advisory, and my areas around IT service management. So that's sort of me as an introduction point of view. We're fortunate to have Aprill joining us. She's the founder of Knowledge Bird and at this point in time, the only Australian-based trainer of KCS. If we can just go to the housekeeping slide as well, please. Wonderful. I think sort of over the last 6 months, we're all pretty good at this sort of stuff, folks. But just around the technology we've got here, you've got the ability to just connect into audio and the instructions are there. I'll let you have a read through of that. The presentation slides you'll see and you can download in that handout pane. With regards to questions, we would ask that you submit questions via the panel as well, or the pane on the side, sorry. And what we might do is periodically just take some breaks throughout the session and then we'll address some of your questions as they come up. But equally, if you want to hang on towards the end and we'll just walk through them one by one. There's a website there if you find yourself up against any sort of technical difficulties. And then following the session, what we'll do probably first thing tomorrow morning is we'll follow up with each of you with an email with slides, a link to the session, some information about some other webinars we're running as well. And should you want to act upon this or get some more information, certainly the ability to get in touch with Aprill or myself. Okay, thank you, Aprill.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, well, as Tim has already introduced, I'm a KCS trainer. I've been aware of KCS for about 11 years, and I think it was 4 years ago I became certified as a trainer. So I help enterprises and startups as well grow their customer service capabilities and improve their knowledge bases for internal use and for self-service for customers. I'm always up for a conversation about improving knowledge management practices in general. So you can find me on Twitter at KnowledgeBird or LinkedIn. I'm pretty responsive on any of those. My background is technical support. I spent 13 or so years doing technical support at level 1 and in network operations. And I've also worked in financial institution in batch operations and IT support before becoming a consultant specialising in knowledge management. So I've been where people are today that I talk to. I know the pressure of service desk environments and how stressful they can become. And that was where I discovered an appreciation for having a good solid knowledge base that really takes the stress out of those situations. So what I'm hoping by the end of our time together today is you'll be able to articulate what KCS is about and what it enables for your team and your customers. And though it is a methodology, it's a way of working, and it's been developed by the Consortium for Service Innovation, which are a group of member companies that contribute to ongoing research and development in KCS, which has been happening for 25 or so years now. The tools we use enable us to do it friction-free, or that's our goal, is to get to a point where the KCS workflow is so well integrated into our daily activities that it doesn't feel like additional work. So yes, it's a methodology and it's not about the tool, but we're using this opportunity to have a look at ServiceNow because it helps to have an idea of the context. What does KCS look like inside a tool that's kind of built around it? And since recent releases of ServiceNow, KCS has been built into the process guidance. So that's why we're talking about it in the context of ServiceNow today, but it can be applied in across any platform. So just keep that in mind in case you're not on a ServiceNow platform. So I want you to think about the attributes of good quality self-service that you've come across in your role as a consumer out there. There's probably a few things that come to mind. One of the first ones would be accuracy. And every knowledge base will have errors from time to time. But if you think of your knowledge base, if you have one yet, what do you have in place to correct errors that come up? What's the process and what are the expectations that you have for your knowledge base? How current is it? How current's the knowledge in your knowledge base? Do you have outdated info in your KB right now? Maybe you do. It's pretty common. When you come across something outdated, what happens? Outside of a KCS knowledge base, I know that I move on. If I find something that's been outdated, then I lose faith in the rest of what might be in that knowledge base. So we'll talk about how to deal with currency within the KCS methodology. Now, speed is an easy one to talk about. How quickly can we add information? Not just how quickly can we find it, but how quickly can we add to it? And how quickly can we update it? The goal is to make this happen in real time, operating at the speed of conversation. And naturally, especially when it comes to self-service, how findable is our content? If a reader can't find a document easily, studies have shown that they'll trust it less once they do. And if they can find the right document, is it buried inside 30 pages of PDF? If that's the case, they'll give up and they'll give you a phone call instead or send an email. And what about usability? How much time does it take to get people up to speed with your processes around knowledge? Is it easy to add articles? Is it easy to link answers to incidents? If we don't make it easy, they won't do it. And that goes to what I was talking about with tools enabling our workflow. And I don't know if you've heard of the term TLDR on the internet, but TLDR is real. It means too long didn't read. People want to be able to skim, especially when you've got agents in the service desk who are in a high pressure situation. They can't digest paragraphs and paragraphs. We need to be able to make sure our knowledge articles are skimmable. It also makes it easier for machine translation if you have an international knowledge base. And the term frugality, parsimony is another way to talk about it. How economical are the actions we're asking people to take? How economical is the system we're building for creating knowledge? So what I mean by that is if you've got a technical writer authoring content in the knowledge base, that's an expensive resource and it takes a long time to be able to get the return on investment through reusing those documents a technical writer is creating. So we need self-service and internal knowledge base to take a short time to create because they're often most useful for a short span of time, especially when you think about incidents. Incidents can come and go fairly quickly rather than being persistent issues. So we don't want an expensive resource crafting a knowledge base article for something that's a short-term event. So how does KCS enable all of these attributes that are important to the quality of knowledge, at least from a consumer standpoint? So KCS has built in 8 practices that maintain our quality controls. So think of it like a braided cable. When you have 3 strands in a piece of rope, it's a lot stronger than a single strand, and that's why these things work together to help build the strength in the quality of our knowledge base. So these 3 strands, the licensing levels, article confidence, and the solve loop, run through our KCS program to preserve quality. So I want to talk about a common fear that people have with knowledge bases and opening up the doors to the Wild West. It feels a bit like you're taking a risk if you're letting anybody add to the knowledge base. We're talking about something akin to crowdsourcing. It's a little bit like Wikipedia, how anybody can modify and add to Wikipedia. But think about it like a team sport rather than the Wild West, and when people are coordinated around the guidance you have in the framework of KCS, that's how you determine quality and you get that team ownership towards the health of your knowledge base. So what we're not doing is channeling quality through one trusted person or 2 trusted people. We're designing the system that assumes the good behaviour is the norm. And we don't design systems to the lowest common denominator because that's where we get our bottlenecks. So what do these 3 things look like in practice? The licensing levels refer to who can do what in your knowledge base. The article confidence refers to the content and the structure of the articles so that we can more easily trust what we're viewing. And the solve loop is that daily practice, the methodology that informs knowledge creation and evolution in the workflow of solving problems. So we have these 4 licensing levels in KCS. Consumers are those people who are reading the content. They're probably your customers, and then they're not participating in the creation of knowledge. Then we have candidates. These are the learners. They're learning how to create and edit their own articles, and they can set an article confidence level to a work in progress or not validated. These states, work in progress and not validated, are part of the KCS confidence attribute. And your candidates meet regularly with peer coaches to help them develop their capability and their competency. Contributors are the next level up. They've earned the right to be able to edit articles created by others, and they can set articles into a validated state. They've shown that they can follow the content standard that you've designed. And publishers have the ability to make articles client-facing or perhaps facing partners. They've proven their KCS skills and they adhere to the content standard. So the article confidence levels. I've mentioned a work in progress. That's an article that has the question that the customer is asking or the issue, and there's no resolution yet. We're still doing our research, but we've captured the problem. Our not validated state is an article has a resolution, but it has one or more of the following: that the resolution was written by a candidate, It hasn't yet been confirmed, and the structure doesn't yet meet the content standard. A validated article meets all those things, and we have a high level of confidence in the content and the structure. So this licensing is a hierarchy, and we build that into our platforms that we're using through the roles and permissions. The work in progress articles are often the case notes or the work notes that you're taking in your platform already, and that gets converted into a knowledge article on completion, on closure. So I want you to visualize your knowledge base as a forest. And every KCS article is a tree in that forest. Each tree is created and it grows up in the solve loop, which we're about to go into. And the solve loop is the heart of KCS. It's the heartbeat. This methodology that I talked about at the beginning, it's been in R&D for nearly 30 years, and it represents the steady heartbeat of your knowledge base and your knowledge process. And this is what it looks like. The solve loop is the tasks that we're doing in our problem solving. And your team are working the tasks, but they're thinking about the big picture. So they're working these activities consistently with the strategic outcomes of your organisation in mind. The why is really important. So this is a request response double loop workflow. It's a self-healing complex adaptive system, which sounds really nerdy, but when we have the 8 practices, these are the 4 practices from the solve loop, but together with the leadership and communication in the other 4 practices, when we pick up on gaps in anywhere in these loops, we can improve them. So let's go into each of these in more detail. The genesis of every knowledge article is the customer. So it starts with the way the customer describes the issue. Often what we do is anticipate knowledge articles. So we write them in advance of demand. And when we do that, we write them from our point of view as technical people. And even though we're accurate people and we pride ourselves on our accuracy, often our customers aren't using those words to describe issues, and that's why they can't find things in our knowledge base. So the knowledge article must start with the customer question or the way they've described their issue. During our problem-solving workflow, we capture their question, their context. We capture their environment that they're in, things like versions, could be location, any tacit knowledge of the responder, so the agent on the service desk. We're capturing their tacit knowledge that's coming to the front of their mind when they're in the middle of the interaction. And all those things are captured in the work notes. Capturing knowledge in the customer's context makes the articles inherently relevant and easily searchable. And then we are moving on to structure. And the efficiency we find in KCS comes from having a simple structure. If we have too many templates to choose from, that's where some analysis paralysis can kick in. So having simple article templates and a clear and concise content standard makes it a lot easier for agents to be able to provide the information you need. So we follow a light but formal content standard, and it takes away that guesswork. Identifying relevant elements of an article in a familiar template can become second nature, and it reduces the time to solve for the agent, and it aids machine translation, and it aids tuning search, because you can tune search on fields. And when you can create a template whereby you can refine search based on customer question field and the environment field, it improves relevancy in the self-service. So structure has a number of benefits when we can follow this guidance. So the return on investment in knowledge comes from reuse. So we want to teach people how to search. We've been spoiled by Google over the years and having highly contextual search results on only a few words, when it actually takes more words than that in a corporate environment to get the relevant results we need. We don't have the luxury of that highly contextual history that Google has on us at work. So we need to use longer key phrases, and we have to teach people how to search more effectively. And also searching early and searching often. So once an article is created, we gain incremental value from that article reuse. We count the value of articles by counting how often they've been linked to closed cases. It'll show us how often articles are being reused by agents, and by watching the self-service analytics, we can see how often we're deflecting cases by providing knowledge. When we copy and paste resolutions from the article into a personalised customer resolution, it speeds up the case closure to the customers. And when a client views an article during case creation, that's where you get your deflection. And the reason we search early is so that we know earlier than we would otherwise when someone else is working on a similar case. Otherwise, we can reinvent the wheel too many times. So with your team ownership to knowledge, it's everybody's obligation to improve. This is where we have to build that team culture. Culture is super important with a successful KCS adoption. So the key phrase for everybody to be aware of is reuse is review. So anytime I go to solve a customer question and I search early and find an existing article, that's my opportunity to review it in the moment. I take responsibility for the articles that I interact with. If I see something that's wrong or that doesn't make sense, I have the responsibility myself to flag it or fix it. So if I don't have the confidence or the permissions to fix it myself, I'll flag it and leave a comment, and that'll enter into a workflow for the KCS contributors to go ahead and edit those articles that I flag. So allowing licensed users to edit articles reduces duplicates, and it keeps the articles up to date so that you avoid that neglect that creeps into a knowledge base that doesn't have that team ownership vibe associated with it. So we can see through what I've talked about today with the solve loop, that we're addressing all of those attributes of a good quality knowledge base and a self-service channel for customers. Through reuse as review, the quality program with the license and the roles to flag or fix, the power of the swarm, the crowdsourcing, the licensing model, the article status that shows us our confidence in a knowledge article, and the solve loop stage of improve. That's how we can ensure accuracy in our knowledge base. We can archive articles that fall out of date, and we can easily edit in our workflow. Again, that's the improve practice that's ensuring currency. Our article template and our content standard and style guide makes articles quick to author. And this is where we can also tune search. So that's our solve loop stage of structure that ensures speed. And using the client's words, but not all of them. We don't need a novel or even a paragraph, just bullet points will do. An article template makes finding relevant information easy, and the client context ensures that it's searchable and relevant. So that's our capture practice in the solve loop. We're continually refining the technology. So KCS is a journey. A KCS adoption can take a long time, and there's a continual improvement methodology that goes into the tools. So we get some experience using our tools and our platform in their current state, and then we see what's not quite right, and we continue to refine that. And we really want to make our tools work at the speed of conversation. So our KCS methodologies, along with our templates and our content standard and style guide, makes KCS articles ultra skimmable. And it's easy to preview inside help desk platforms that show a preview as you're going through suggested answers. And when we can keep a team authorship approach and a team modification approach, authoring is low cost. Articles are written in a sufficient to solve way. And case resolutions are quickly converted through the click of a button into a reusable knowledge article. That's how we can ensure frugality and parsimony in our system. So Tim, I think this is your slide. Do you want to show how it looks inside the platform?
Sure, just 1 minute. Just before we go on, what I might do is just stop and pause and really just give people an opportunity to pose any questions if they've got any, or Jess, if we've got any queued up to go, if you can just share them. No? Okay. Well, I might go on. Please, if anyone's got any questions, note them down, and we absolutely will just go through them at the end. So what I wanted to do now is just to give you an understanding about having implemented a methodology such as KCS, what that might look like in a practical sense in the application of it into a tool set. And many of you may already be doing this, but certainly what I just want to give you a sense of is how you would capture, validate, publish, and then go on to manage knowledge within your organization. So the example I'll show you today is using ServiceNow. So BDO is a ServiceNow partner, so we typically implement the tool set for customers, but certainly, as Aprill said, it's applicable in a whole range of different tool sets. And another thing I'd just like to say is, whilst we are largely using IT as an example about how to use knowledge, there's certainly an application to use it in a whole range of other functions. So certainly any part of the business has got a high volume of customer inquiries. So if you think about HR, potentially customer services, legal, facilities, these sort of things, it certainly has got a relevance there as well. So what we see here is an incident as it would appear. And then, as Aprill said earlier, what we're doing here is we're capturing all that information as you would in the incident, and certainly using the terminology that the customer would use as well. Once we resolve that incident and our IT help desk operators have put resolution details in, they've got the ability here within ServiceNow to create knowledge directly from the incident record. Equally, you might want to build that into a problem record, you might want to build it into a change, you might want to build it into just a simple customer contact as well. We're fortunate with a plug-in to ServiceNow of KCS, there's a lot of this stuff is already pre-configured, so it's quite easily. And equally, there's a lot of templates that would sit behind this that we can use in regards to the capturing of knowledge. So once they would go in, and for example, a service desk operator might select here to create knowledge. Thanks, Aprill. If you can just click through, wonderful. Oops, if you can just back up. So once they select on the bottom left-hand corner there to create knowledge, what it will do is it will pre-populate a series of fields. And then what it's doing is capturing some of that information that they've already recorded in the incident record and populating some of those fields. So typically, as an author of the information here, is I'm going to capture it. I'm going to capture any additional customer context as well.
and then the operator can add that in. So the objective here really is to use the tool as much as you can to avoid the burden on the help desk operator of having to rekey data as well. And this is a sort of light touch approach. I think it was mentioned earlier with regards to, you don't want it to be a burden for your people in order to initiate a knowledge process. So typically we would author this now, and then we can send that off for approval. Thanks, Aprill. So as a knowledge manager, you would receive a request, or you'd receive something that's been initiated. You would go through, review the information and validate it. And then if there's a determination that it's a valid knowledge piece, then you'll go and create an article. And this is what that typically might look like. So there's probably a couple of different lenses we can apply here. One is where we're creating and making visible knowledge internally. So this is so that our employees can do self-service and those sort of things, but equally, we're also creating publicly facing knowledge. So customers coming in, maybe even using chatbots or some sort of automated response, or equally, they can go in and search your databases as well. They can provide some degree of self-service as well. Now, as we would configure it for our customers, each of these steps we would underpin with automated workflow. So we're trying to make it as simple as possible for the operators and less time consuming about how they capture that information, but once they send it off, that we're routing it to the right people, and therefore they're publishing it, reviewing and publishing it as well. Thank you, Aprill. So as a knowledge manager as well, what I want to ensure is that the information that's being captured and the information that we're retaining on our knowledge base is current, relevant and accurate. So typically what we will do is build some dashboards and reporting and these sort of things. Gives us a really simple view about, once knowledge has been published, about how often it's being reused. And Aprill mentioned earlier, really the return on investment for the process is a determination about how often that knowledge is being used. So this gives a knowledge manager the ability to manage the information that's in the knowledge base, promote things that are being used more and more, but equally to retire knowledge as it's no longer being used. So this just provides a really simple way to track and manage that as well. Thank you, Aprill. Okay, so having rolled out a knowledge management process, what sort of value does it bring to the business? And what I want to give you a sense here is, prior to making investments in it, is how do you get the business on board in trying to demonstrate what the value is? So a significant component of that is this ability to effectively self-service. So it's self-servicing internally to your own employees, but more importantly, externally to your customers. And what we often find is that people are increasingly happy to self-serve, because it gives them this flexibility of being able to access information and resolve their problems wherever, whenever, and however they want to. And if you can stand up a really good self-service platform, is typically you increase your customer experience, which allows you to drive things like customer loyalty and retention. Another significant advantage is, by customers self-servicing, is it's deflecting a significant volume of those low complexity, high volume sort of inquiries by them resolving themselves, but equally it allows your service desk and customer service people to focus on those critical and complex issues as well. So Gartner listed self-service in their top 5 customer service trends for 2020. So certainly there's some value there. Another element is allowing your support teams to better anticipate, identify, resolve, or refer issues. We've already spoken a little bit about the value this brings to customer experience. But what we've also found is where support teams are actively contributing towards improving the degree of service they provide is that they're more productive and happier in what they're doing. And so what that does is allows you to attract and retain quality individuals in those customer-facing frontline roles. Once again, Gartner's done a bit of research into this, and they found that where support desk staff feel that the tools and systems that they're using to handle issues simplify what they do, it increases their productivity by up to 20%. And the resultant flow on for customer satisfaction increases by somewhere in the view of about 11% as well. The use of knowledge, and certainly a knowledge base that evolves with some of the different behaviours of your customers, allows you to understand where there's change and where there's a change occurring within your business or within some of the behaviours of your customers or the needs of your customers. So you'll see certainly trends in certain ways about how they're asking for your services and how they choose to engage with you. So equally, what this allows you to do is to create new services or products to better meet the needs of your customers. What we also see people doing as well is using some of the results within their knowledge base to modify the existing services that they've got to bring them into better practice. So it does provide quite a good continuous improvement loop as well. The knowledge base is, well, a well-deployed and managed knowledge base becomes a really key asset to the business. And then once you can get to that sort of stage that Aprill highlighted earlier, it allows you to have an application in many different ways within the business. And I sort of mentioned this before, is moving it outside of IT. So one of the areas that we see it gets a lot of traction is places like HR, where there's high volumes of interactions with customers, but equally they can be they can have their needs attended to through things like self-service. Just some examples, and probably to give you some context around the value, just beyond words, I suppose. So these are some examples of different customers who have deployed a degree of knowledge management within their organisations. So Basware, so they're a business platform for purchasing, invoicing and payments. They combine their front-end facing customer service portal with a knowledge base and a KCS type methodology. And what they saw within their business over time was a 30% reduction in their resolution time, an 11% increase in customer satisfaction, but equally, probably a 75% cut in their customer response times as well, which is probably the biggest of all three of those. All three metrics closely related, but the reducing response times massive. NICE are a media tech company who embarked on a customer service transformation program. So once again, they directly used the KCS methodology with regards to their customer service portal. So what they looked to do was have a significant shift of a customer service channel from a traditional phone call into online self-service and online case creation type portal as well. So in doing so, they saved themselves about $450,000 a year. And some of the metrics they sort of had was this, a reduction in customer inquiries so that they could service their customer needs about 8 times faster as well. Finally, Flight Centre rolled out IT service management and knowledge management as well internally to build a customer service portal for their agents. And what they saw as a result of that, through enabling self-service, was a reduction of about 3,000 customer inquiries a month for their internal service desk calls as well. So once again, some significant sort of gains there. All right, so what we might give you a sense now is what a KCS implementation approach might look like. in regards to time and effort and what the outputs to that process might be?
Yeah, I think before we do that, I might go back to your dashboard slide, because Brad has asked some questions about measures, which I'm really glad we've got, because measures is something that changes quite significantly when you are working in a KCS workflow. So let me just flick back a couple of slides so that we can talk to this a little bit. So the first question was, how do we track reuse of an article and thereby rewarding that behaviour, rewarding reuse? So that implies that people are searching before they're solving, which is what we want. So on this dashboard, we can see reuse there by the view count there in the top 10 knowledge articles, and on the right hand side we can see that's a little bit cut off, but the use count, like how many times knowledge articles are being used internally. So that's how we track it, and that's called the link rate inside the KCS methodology. So the link rate is important for us to monitor as knowledge managers, the trend, like how is it trending, and we want to see the link rate going up over time. What we don't want to do is put a goal on link rate though for our knowledge workers, our service desk people, because if we goal activities, it can be manipulated and it'll corrupt our knowledge base. So if you can just picture in your mind, you're a manager and you've set a goal for your knowledge workers that you want to achieve a 90% link rate over the next month. You can imagine those who are keen to get that milestone are more likely to link any old knowledge base because they're ticking that box. Right. So what we need to encourage our knowledge workers to do is link accuracy. So we want them to be linking accurately and linking to the most relevant and correct answer in the knowledge base. So whilst we as managers are keeping an eye on the trend of the link rate, we're talking about link accuracy, and we're building that capability and by rewarding link accuracy. So how can we do that in rewards? I mean, people are motivated by different things, but generally speaking, they'll be motivated by that sense of mastery, autonomy and purpose. So if you're connecting them, these daily activities of reuse and creating and improving with those big goals, what's the grand vision of who we work for? I want to know that I'm contributing to that purpose and I'm seeing the impact that I'm making. So if you can show me through these dashboards how my work as a knowledge worker and the articles I'm creating and improving is impacting on our goals as an organisation, I'm going to feel pretty chuffed that I'm doing well. So that's what we can do with rewarding, is showing impact, and then the other ways that your organisation might do that or your team might do that can vary, but that's tapping into that intrinsic motivation. In terms of tracking ROI through KCS has a lot of benefits. And as managers and leaders, if we're working in a KCS environment, we have to shift the way we measure from that transactional sort of production line style metrics into value, like how are we measuring value. And so to do that, we have to look outside our level 1, level 2 case closure type metrics, and we have to look at things like root cause removal or pervasive issues. How many pervasive issues did these knowledge articles help us deal with? So root cause removal is a big one. Policy improvements. Of course, there's those familiar ones like customer satisfaction and employee engagement. So they're sort of lagging indicators that they're the outcomes that we really want to put goals on for people. So we really want to encourage them towards those outcomes. So we have to look at a mix of things. It's yes, looking at those transactional things as leading indicators like the fixed on first contact and average handle time and that sort of thing. but we can't rely solely on those because they're going to start tanking when we turn self-service on. So that's a ditch that people often get trapped in, is that when you turn on self-service, of course, all of our high volume stuff is being managed by the customers themselves. And so the calls that we get into the service desk for assistance are going to be more complicated. So they're going to take longer for our agents to fix after we've turned self-service on. So that really does freak people out, people who are paying attention to the measures, because they're looking at that level 1, level 2 case-oriented metric, and they've not broadened the scope of their measures out into the rest of where we're creating value. So that's something that can take a while to master, the way those measures change. So great question. Thanks very much.
I think equally, April, as you turn self-service on, there's certainly some measures you can have in mapping value in regards to that call deflection. So there's certainly some cost savings are going to occur as a result of people not connecting through knowledge workers. But equally, you can track NPS and see what customer satisfaction is like and how it's responded to, providing that ability for customers to self-service as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And NPS, we've got a few case studies in our KCS material that demonstrate NPS, significant NPS bumps, because the work you do in your solve loop to improve findability really does have positive impact on the customer experience through the self-service channel. So yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We got another question.
Sorry.
Sorry, we got another question from Nick about ServiceNow count views. Okay, so this is a technical question about ServiceNow. Can you see that one?
I can't, but please.
One issue is currently our ServiceNow count views at all times, including when being drafted. Okay, so it includes counting drafted articles. So we get overinflated view counts for articles being authored. We need view counts to be distinct to user views per day once published. Yeah, so that's a technical question that I can't answer. I don't know if you can on the spot, Tim.
No, I'm not going to make a fool of myself if I'm honest, but what I might do, I'm going to take it on notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've certainly got who that's from as well, so we can respond to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, well, go back to our presentation here. Yeah, so let's look at what a typical adoption journey is, because often people think it's they're going to have someone embedded in the organisation for months on end, but it's not quite like that. And when I say typical, I want to say that that's in the context of large organisations, and you know, the consortium are sort of heavily US centric. So, you know, my experience here in Australia is a little different. We're at a little different pace. So even though this is typical, you know, it's certainly flexible, and it just depends on where you're at and how you want to work. So what normally happens is we do a knowledge review. So without doubt, you are probably doing a lot of things right already. So it's good for us to know what's working well and where the gaps are. So we start with a knowledge review, and that's looking at what sort of governance documentation you already have, what state is your knowledge base currently in, if you've already got one, what sort of practices you have in motion already, and some stakeholder interviews so that we can understand how knowledge workers are feeling about working in their existing workflow, and how managers are feeling about what the outcomes look like. So we do a few interviews. And we also talk to whoever the program manager is and what their desire is from, you know, this sort of work. And then there's a couple of tracks of learning for the people who will be running the knowledge program. There's a practices workshop that really deep dives beyond what we've covered today. We've just looked at those 4 practices in the Solve loop, and there are 8 if you count the Evolve loop as well, which is where all the reflection, the continuous improvement, the leadership and communication, that's where all that comes from. So we spend 2 days doing a practices workshop, and that can be done remotely, of course, under the present circumstances. And then normally what happens is we have a design workshop, and that's where your knowledge leaders come together with a facilitator, such as me, and you would have representation from each level of your knowledge workers. So if you have a tiered organisation, support org, then we would have a representation from level 1, 2, 3 in there as well, because the people doing the work need to design the work. So it's good to have them in there, and that's where the team ownership comes from. And then after that, 1 or 2 day design workshop, depends on the complexity. Then we can have a post-adoption coaching relationship where I'm just there on tap for you to ask questions, and I can help you with facilitating your monthly knowledge leadership team meeting and keep continuing to head in the right direction. So a design workshop will cover your content standard, strategic framework, comms plan, workflow, like how the tools, what's your wish list for bringing the tools integrated into your workflow. So it's quite extensive, and it's a deep dive into the context of your own organisation. And then for the team members, there's a shorter KCS course. It can be 1 day facilitated, or you can do it online, and you get the KCS fundamentals, which is deep diving into the Solve loop, which we talked about today. And then we have a practical hands-on the platform. So in this case, it's say ServiceNow, and you would have your knowledge workers working with ServiceNow, working within the structure that you've defined for your templates, and showing and learning how to create in the moment in the interaction with the customers. So they're practical hands-on workshops that help to establish those behaviours that we need them to do. So so that's sort of how you get started, and then it evolves. To give you a sense of timeline, it's good to keep your learners, so your KCS candidates, which is what we talked about with the licensing model and the roles and responsibilities. Your candidates are learning for 6 to 12 weeks. By that point, they should have demonstrated that they can meet the content standard and the workflow requirements, and they become the candidates, the contributors, so they're contributing knowledge into the knowledge base. And then the more publishers you can have, the better, because that will get more content into your self-service to solve more customer problems more quickly. So it can take 6 months for your self-service to be ready to go live with. If you've already got self-service live, which is quite possible, then you'll be continuously improving it. So after turning on self-service, it could take another year to really get that leverage of high impact root cause removal type stuff, because you need the time to build up that analysis and patterns and trends of reuse in your knowledge base, which is what gives you the understanding of where the friction is in your service environment. So that's how long it can take. It is a delayed gratification model. So that's why it's important to really drive home the purpose and the strategy and the mission. And we're doing our Solve loop every day, all day in our problem solving, because we're working towards this big purpose. And it's like going to the gym, I promise. That yes, if you go at least 3 times a week, you might not see or feel a difference straight away, but it's like compound interest, and after time you will absolutely be feeling better and looking better, and that's what KCS is like.
I think it's probably worth mentioning as well, Aprill, is the process is about enablement. So it's about working with organisations to build that muscle within the team, and certainly the objective is is that they will become empowered to run the process and to develop the methodology within the organisation rather than having to depend on someone else to come in. Certainly there is a need to come in and fine tune and do a little bit of train the trainer, if you like, but certainly the long-term view is that something that you'll own and run yourselves.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about you know, teaching you to fish, because it's your organisation and your content. It's not successful when you rely on an external person to keep the program running. They can absolutely get the program going, but your ownership and your own empowerment is really key to it sort of soaking into the DNA of your organisation. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just mindful of time. Did we have anything else, or do you want to take some more questions?
I don't think we had any more questions yet, but there may be some after people have had a chance to sort of reflect on this session and have a look at their own instance of their platform, whether they're using ServiceNow or something else, and have a look at what they might be doing currently. And if that's the case, my details and Tim's details will be in your email tomorrow, and you can certainly let me know if you've got any lingering questions. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. What I might do there is just once again thank everyone. Appreciate your time. Hopefully there's some value in it, and hopefully you've got a sense of what KCS now is. As Aprill said, we'll send a notice out, and it'll give you access to a range of different resources. Certainly, yeah, just reach out and get in touch if you'd like, or if you've got any questions whatsoever. So thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
See you.